York Mets trade rumors are escalating once again. A writer revealing a potential blockbuster trade. As you just saw on your screen, Pablo Lopez of the Minnesota Twins, formerly the Miami Marlins, could be coming to Flushing. And if he does, he is automatically penciled in at the top of the rotation. Could be the one, maybe the two, maybe the three, depending on where you want to pencil in Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea when he returns from injury. But regardless of where the Mets put him in the rotation, Pablo Lopez would be a guy the Mets are trading for at all-star caliber talent and ace-level talent, which the Mets desperately need despite having such a great dominant pitching staff. They really don't have that ace. Getting Pablo Lopez, I believe, would solidify getting that ace. Welcome back to Mets Digest, everyone. I'm your host today, Mike Duda, and as always, please let me know what you think. Interact down below, drop a comment, give me your opinions, and thank you again for taking the time out of your day to watch today's video. So, without further ado, who said it? It is going to be Zachary Howell of Clutch Points. He said, quote, "The Mets are one of many teams who would be interested if Lopez is available. Manaea and Montas are still recovering from injuries, and Mendoza would love to have another arm to turn to." Now, not only would this be an arm to turn to, this would be a reliable arm and a potential ace arm to turn to. And as always, I'm going to turn to stats. Look at the career numbers. He's having such a good year. Despite being a 3.84 career ERA pitcher, which isn't really that good, he's having a stellar season and a 2.18 ERA. Now, a 3-2 record, I personally believe that doesn't paint the entire picture. As you guys might know, I'm not a big fan of wins-losses for pitchers because you can get really inflated from a great offense, even if you're not a very good pitcher. And you could also have Jacob deGrom disease where your team scores no runs for you and your ERA is super low, but you don't get a lot of wins because your team's not scoring runs for you. I think Pablo Lopez basically has Jacob deGrom disease, and we will check that out in just a second. After I do want to note here, a 2023 All-Star after Lopez went to Minnesota. He's been real good in Minnesota, definitely a little bit better than he was in Miami. But regardless, let's focus on this season. This year, he has been a part of 3 losses, and all 3 of them have come on the road. A 1-3 road record, 2-0 at home, good for the 3-2 total. Let's dive right into each and every one of those lost starts. In St. Louis, he lost 5-3, so not a lot of runs. This is, again, I think he has deGrom disease. There's just a lack of run support around Pablo Lopez in Minnesota. You go to the stats, 5 innings, 4 runs, 2 earned, 3.6 ERA, received the loss. That's the one time that I think Lopez is deserving of the loss, potentially. He still pitched pretty solid, but he unfortunately received the loss in that game. You go a couple weeks later to the game in Kansas City on April 8th. It was a 2-1 loss for the Twins. And unfortunately, he got injured during the game. That is when he had a hamstring injury and was out for the next 2 weeks afterwards. Now, Lopez received the no decision in that game after 4 2/3, 1 run, unearned baseball, so a 0-0 ERA. He didn't qualify for the win because he didn't pitch 5 innings, but real solid outing there. And again, the 2-1 final indicates there's no run support there for Mr. Lopez. Last game that he lost was in Cleveland, 4-2 L for the squad. 6 1/3 innings pitched, 2 runs, both earned, a 2.84 ERA on the day, and received the loss. So he's pitching well. He's just not receiving run support. And you can see it from the numbers here. 3-2 this year with a 2.18 ERA in 6 games started, 33 innings pitched, 26 hits, 2 home runs, 5 walks, 37 Ks. That is good for a 7.09 hits per 9, 0.55 homers per 9, 1.36 walks per 9, which is really impressive given today's modern era and how walks are just so big and so often on the starting pitching side and on the pitching side in general, and over a 10 strikeouts per 9, which is really impressive for starters because they don't strike out as many batters. It's just the way that starting pitching works. You're expected to go longer. You don't necessarily strike out as many batters. So 10 is definitely a really impressive number for a starting pitcher. Also an 0.94 whip. All of those statistics that I told you are career lows, and the Ks per nine is the second highest that he has had in his career, only behind that All-Star season in 2023 where he had 10.9. Last thing that I want to note in terms of the stats with Pablo Lopez is a little interesting. It goes back to my FIP discussion from the last video that I filmed. Go check that out if you haven't already. 11 runs given up, only 8 of them earned. So if you go to my new stat friend FIP, 2.11. Keep in mind that 3.2 is excellent according to Fangraphs, and he has a 2.11 FIP. That just shows you how dominant he has been on the mound. He deserves to be someone that should be referred to as an ace. And I think if the Mets get him, again, he is that ace. And I think he is that guy that the Mets are going to look for. Now, why does this work? And why does this work given the philosophy of David Stearns? Well, Jackson Roberts from the Sporting News gives you the explanation. He says, quote, the 4-year, $73.5 million extension the Twins signed Lopez to before the 2024 season might be the number one thing that would pique the Mets' interest. It's not a long-term commitment, and they wouldn't have to worry about paying him past his prime. That goes exactly to David Stearns' philosophy. He doesn't want to overpay for the guys because he has the biggest contract in sports in Juan Soto, and Lopez would be fulfilling just that. He's 29 years old, so at the end of his contract, he'd be 33. Mets can say, look, it's been great. Thanks for the 4 years, but we're going to move on. So this could definitely be a great situation. On the other hand, I don't see the necessary need for it. Yes, the Mets want an ace, right? You don't have that ace name. Maybe it's Kodai Senga, maybe Sean Manaea, but it's not like, oh, we have Garrett Cole like the Yankees do. That's our ace, right? I know Cole is hurt, but we don't have that kind of a name right now. So I think Lopez could be that name, but again, he's not really that name. He's been great, don't get me wrong. He'd be a great addition, but I don't know if he's worth all of the capital that we would have to give up. And I'll get into this a little bit more when I check out the comments from my Kyle Finnegan video way back when. Dive into a little bit more of the comments there. I think the Mets might be needing to give up too much. The Twins are 19-20 right now. They're 7 games out of the first place Detroit Tigers, 1.5 back in the wild card. So they're not necessarily out of it, but we'll see as the trade deadline approaches. I just think the Mets are going to have to give up too much to go get this guy, and there's already enough starting pitching. There's too much starting pitching almost. Right now you have Peterson. He's been great. Holmes has been great. Canning has been great. Senga is Senga. Manaea is returning. You also have Blackburn returning. You have Frankie Montas returning. There are so many starting pitchers that are in there. You got Tyler McGill, who has looked great as well. That's 8 guys that I've named there. I know Blackburn's not necessarily the best, so let's say 7 guys that I've named that are very much so capable of being in the starting rotation. Are you really going to go trade for an 8th? I think they should focus a little bit more on the bullpen that has faced so many injuries this season. But regardless, that is the outlook on Pablo Lopez that we have. Let me get back into some of these comments from the Kyle Finnegan video that I recorded way back when. We got a comment here that Jeremy H. is the best pitching coach ever. I definitely like him. The one knock I have on Jeremy Hefner, our pitching coach, is that Met pitchers tend to walk too many batters. But I think Hefner's done a really good job of that this year, and the stats won't lie with us being the best starting pitching in all of baseball and still a top 10 bullpen in terms of ERA. Another comment here, get rid of McNeil. I can understand this. I'm personally a McNeil fan, so I'm not going to agree with it, but I can see how we have such a plethora of infielders, if you will, in terms of Acuna, and you got Vientos, and you got Lindor, then you have Beatty, who's still hovering around. Is McNeil really needed? I guess not, but I think it's a nice bat to have. Again, he did win the batting title in 2022. Another comment here, by the way, any relation to Lucas? As I said a couple videos ago, unfortunately not, but I do like to tell people that he is a cousin of mine, long-lost cousin. Oh well. He's not. Anyway, next comment here is too many starting pitchers are not going beyond the 5th. This happens every year. Then the bullpen is gassed before the All-Star break. It's Reed Garrett wasn't as dominant after May. I agree with this, and I think this is a trend not for just the Mets, but all starting pitching in Major League Baseball. They're not going enough innings, and therefore bullpens get tired. That's the way that it works. They get gassed. So I agree with the comment there, but I don't think it's just a Met problem. I think it's an MLB problem. Next comment here is the whole point about the balk is mute because the following batter walked. Either way would have been runners on first and second. The only issue here is how injured is Diaz, and it's not uncommon to get cramping in a game. Obviously, I'm a little late to the comment here. I apologize for that. But yes, Diaz is fine. And I thought that was a really interesting balk play for sure. Definitely one where you got to go back to the rule books. Next thing I have, it will probably be a costly endeavor since it will be an interdivisional trade. I also agree with this in terms of Kyle Finnegan. But especially given the Met bullpen injuries, I think a trade for Finnegan is still worth it. And I think since the Nationals will be out of it by the deadline and no, they're not getting Finnegan back because he's not going to re-sign after free agency, I don't think it is the worst move. I think we can give up a prospect or two for him. Next batch of comments that I got. Diaz has an issue between his ears just like in 2019, minus a few miles per hour. He still has closer stuff and probably can be worth his contract if he picked up a third pitch. Plus, we're the Mets. We'll trade him only to see him post a 1.5 ERA the next 4 years, and Finnegan will be the New York Yankee version of Devin Williams. I think this is funny, and again, as a Met fan, yeah, that's typical New York Mets baseball that we would be rolling down, but I don't think that would be the case with Finnegan. I think Diaz is also here to stay on this roster. They're paying him a lot of money, so Diaz is here to stay, and I have faith in Finnegan, but we'll see. Last comment that I'm going to go over today is I'm done with Diaz. Simply said, the guy just can't get his head straight. He's got the tools, but not the fire or confidence. He's got to go. Maybe he can revive his career somewhere else. I say let's get Finnegan or anyone else whose mentality prepared to play in New York. We are going to definitely need a stopper down the stretch, and I just don't want to see Edwin being the answer. I agree. I don't think Diaz is cut out for the closer role. I don't think he has the mentality to do so, but the Mets are never going to move on from him because they're paying him a lot of money. They're paying him to be the closer. They had a blockbuster deal back in 2019 that brought him over. So unfortunately, it's just never going to happen. But I agree. He's got no confidence, and it's tough between the ears when you need to be a closer and you don't have that kind of confidence. I'll give you guys one more comment here, and that is that the Nationals are not trading us anything, and if they do, they would want a haul. Not worth it. I go back to the sense that the Nationals will be out of it by the trade deadline, and with Finnegan coming up on a contract season, coming up on free agency, I do see a potential where the Mets could work out a deal with the Nationals and not give up too much of a haul. But that is all the time I have for you today for this video. As always, I will conclude by saying thank you, and let's go Mets.